Justice for Charles. What comes next after UFC 274? There's no doubt about it, UFC 274 was a weird card. The UFC 5th pay-per-view event of the year was hit by a whirlwind of controversies that affected the card before, during, and after the event. There were some amazing moments that fight fans are sure to remember, but there were also a handful of fights that left fans wishing they could forget. That's why we are here to break down everything you need to know about UFC 274, giving you an eye on the fight. The first proverbial put to hit the fan was when incumbent lightweight kingpin Charles the Bronx Oliveira was stripped of his title after weighing in over the 155-pound limit. He missed by a mere half-pound, with as many as 20 fighters commenting that the scale in the hotel the fighters were staying at was improperly calibrated. Oliveira and his team were adamant that he hit weight Thursday, with Charles even tweeting out that day that his weight was on target. He was genuinely surprised when the scales tipped, prompting many fans and MMA analysts to call for digital scales at the weigh-ins. Oliveira was given an hour to cut the final half-pound, but was unable to do so, resulting in the first ever stripping of a champion belt due to missed weight. It's the UFC worst-kept secret though, because diehards of the sport understand that Charles isn't the first to be half-pound over and slip by. Fans might recall the scene famous Towelgate, where the suspicious Quebec Athletic Commission loosened fast rules with rounding numbers down when GSP weighing in at 170.4 pounds for UFC 158. In fact, the last man to fight against Justin Gaethje for a lightweight championship, Khabib Nurmagomedov, was alleged to have weighed in heavy before his final fight in Abu Dhabi. Despite these other incidents that were swept under the rug, Charles endured the full repercussions. Before even stepping into the octagon, the deck was stacked against Oliveira. Instead of defending his belt for the second time, he was now fighting for the #1 contender spot. Many felt that the psychological damage caused by him getting stripped of his title without even losing, combined with the physical stress of having to cut additional weight, would prove too much for Oliveira to endure. Well, as he's done time and time again, he proved the doubters wrong, and took a hefty hit to Drake's wallet in the process. Ironically, one of Oliveira's biggest doubters has been Justin Gaethje. Gaethje was a very vocal critic when the UFC gave the lightweight title shot to Oliveira and Michael Chandler after Khabib retired. Back then, he stated that Oliveira's then 8-fight win streak wasn't impressive because he hadn't beat anybody significant. This is despite the fact that Gaethje himself was only 5-3 in his 8-fight tenure with the UFC. Gaethje built off that initial smack talk by bringing up Oliveira's past, citing featherweight fights where he folded quickly. Once a quitter, always a quitter, was his mantra, and he was doing his best to convince people that he would show that side of Oliveira when they fought. Brutal as this sport may be, there is always an opportunity for poetic justice. When all was said and done, it wasn't Oliveira who quit. If MMA Twitter wrote a script for how they thought this fight was going to play out, it'd be similar to what actually happened, only less epic. Charles Oliveira would get knocked down like he always does, but then find a way to teleport to Gaethje's back and tap him out. It was a masterclass performance from the people's champ, who hurt Gaethje with every right hand that landed from the very first punch. One thing Oliveira did so well was negate one of Gaethje's best weapons early, the leg kick. Gaethje is renowned for his devastating leg kicks, throwing them with the intent to take away his opponent's movement so he can set up bombs with his hands. The first two he threw landed, but Oliveira showed his championship level by making the adjustment and causing Gaethje to lose his range. No other leg kick landed for Justin, whose demeanor shifted from calm to reckless as the fight went on. Gaethje uppercuts clipped Oliveira and caused him to fall back, but Justin wisely avoided the Brazilian's guard, electing to wait until the referee stood him up. So as expected, Oliveira was knocked down again, but his threat on the ground is so substantial that his knockdowns essentially become rest periods for him. Meanwhile, Charles was finding a home for his right hand, utilizing the clinch to neutralize any pressure from Gaethje. A tell for Gaethje is that when he gets stung, he's more likely to throw big, sloppy shots in retaliation. Oliveira's right hand was landing so crisply that Justin entered this panic mode, practically throwing himself to the canvas with a winging right that was nowhere close. Everyone knew that Oliveira's submission threat was his biggest weapon, but it was that piston right hand he was landing that sent Gaethje falling back into the cage. Gaethje was badly hurt, and Oliveira swooped in. He initially set Gaethje up for a triangle, the same submission that Khabib beat him with back in 2020. When Justin turned to escape, Oliveira does what the Bronx do, snatch up Gaethje's neck and added another notch to the UFC finish record. It was as impressive of a performance as anyone could have expected, especially given the circumstances. Still, there was a bittersweet element considering the debacle with the scales. Many feel that the UFC was overly harsh in their treatment of Oliveira, though Dana White clarified during the post-fight press conference that Charles still received his pay-per-view points. Others feel like he missed weight, so nobody should feel bad for him. What do you guys think? Regardless of whether or not you think Oliveira should be reinstated as champion, most MMA fans agree that the thing we should all feel bad about is Tony Ferguson. It was tough seeing El Cucuy flatlined by an explosive Michael Chandler front kick. There was a time not too long ago where Ferguson was considered one of the best lightweights in the world with an uncrackable chin. Adding insult to injury is the fact that Tony Ferguson looked damn good in the first round, in which he actually won the exchanges on the feet. He knocked Chandler down and even landed substantial elbows from the bottom after being taken down. El Cucuy was trying to reestablish himself after a 3-fight losing skid and came out looking better than he had in a long time. Then in a flash it was all over, and it was scary. Seeing Tony Ferguson face down asleep on the canvas in that way is not something many MMA fans would ever think they'd see. It was an incredible performance for Chandler, who got one of the best promos in recent UFC history during his Octagon interview. It took a long time for Ferguson to get back to his feet, and when he did not look good. Although many already felt it was a foregone conclusion, this was Ferguson's last chance to try and right the ship. Now, after this devastating KO, many believe it's time for El Cucuy to hang them up. Some are more hopeful, citing how good he looked in the first round. While a title shot is unlikely to ever come to fruition from this point moving forward, it's still possible for Tony Ferguson to have fun money fights in the future. Meanwhile, Chandler set himself up nicely for a rematch with Gaethje. Outside of the excitement of these two lightweight bouts, the main card was a mixed bag. Not only was Donald Cerrone versus Joe Lawson scratched at the last minute, but the Rose Namajunas versus Carlos Esparza 2 bout ended up being one of the worst championship fights in UFC history. It was so sluggish that it made Ngannou versus Lewis look like an absolute barn burner. Namajunas lost her belt in a controversial split decision. The only conclusive loss was for the fans who had to watch that disappointment. Now that all the smoke has settled and UFC 274 is concluded, do you think Charles Oliveira should be reinstated as lightweight champion? Or should he have to win the belt during a showdown with the winner of Dariush versus Makhachev? Should Tony Ferguson retire, or can he come back for a money fight? Would you rather see Michael Chandler fight Conor McGregor, rematch Justin Gaethje, or challenge Oliveira a second time for lightweight gold? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit like and subscribe for future MMA content. Thanks for watching.